All right, welcome to the Augur meeting for March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 26th. So this is the one that the limit hourly processing
Yeah,
for,
that's something I noticed. So I noticed our prod over the weekend slash my week off last week wasn't behaving great. I think the first issue was the large file downloads from scorecard, which is a different issue. But then
yeah,
it also had an issue where it was just running out of memory, and I was like, hang on, I thought we fixed all the memory problems. And I looked into it, and it turns out that yeah, it's basically I noticed that after I restarted it, the graph in Grafana of the memory usage would step down every hour, basically consistently. And that was like, huh, we just enabled an hourly task. I wonder if that's the task. And so it did seem like it was exactly the issue we discussed in the maintainers call last week, which is for large instances with tens of thousands of contributors, many of them may or may not have the two date fields that this job is looking for to decide like, hey, has
and,
this been
and
filled in with profile data? So it was basically pulling in like 50,000 contributors every hour, not getting through all of them, and just
right.
like it's going to continue. And then the next hour, a new one starts. And so it was just making copies and copies and copies of
Yeah,
those 50,000 I think this task has two copies of the 50 of all the records in memory,
yeah.
and it was starting a new one every hour and not finishing. So it was just like eating, it had eaten like huge amounts of memory. This one's still
This is
being
a very,
tested, so
okay.
I'm still running it in our prod. I don't see why it would go wrong if you feel like just YOLO merging it, but if you wait a little bit, I can confirm
The
for a
only
fact that
thing
it
I see
works.
difference is, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, the only real difference I see is that you've made the syntax a little bit neater and you've put a limit of 500 items per query on it. But,
Yeah, so
you
that's
know,
basically 500 per hour, effectively.
yeah, which just seems like an appropriate.
Yeah, that I so as I noted in the PR description, that might be a little bit low because I think my initial when I was thinking of it, I was thinking of the 5,000 limit on REST API calls, and I was like, okay, 500 is reasonable relative to that. But I wasn't. I was. This was me, like at 6 p.m. last night, tired brain. Um,
Well,
I
the thing
wasn't
is,
thinking that big instances are going to have multiple keys, and so 1,000 might be a little bit more reasonable. But this will do the 500 an hour is 12,000 a day. So like even for like 50,000 plus contributors that haven't had profile data, this will like
it's
over
gonna,
a week this should get to full population.
yeah, it's gonna tick through everything. And yeah, I mean, this is another one where I think it's pretty straightforward what you're doing here. And if it didn't fail on execution, the logic is simple and straightforward. You really haven't changed it other than there's no change in logic other than a better syntax. Really, you just kind of laid it out better and this limit, that's it, right?
Yep.
Am I seeing that right?
Yeah, that's the two commits that
Yeah. I
I think
mean,
the what's the third commit? I think there might have been a third commit for something, but yeah, I think it was all just basically the formatting and the yeah. Um, and then I think one thing, if we're looking at things that we need for this coming release, um, I think it's also given John's comments in the maintainers call last week, like since we had an error with how we were doing various parts of facade collection and contributor resolution that was causing data to be bad, like because it was kind of an automatic error in Augur, it should kind of be an automatic solution ideally. I don't know. I think Callie's also been kind of brainstorming on things. It seems like you maybe had some items later in the agenda, but um, I think that's going to be something that's important to include in
which
this
piece that
release.
John said? Which piece that John said?
Like I think he was just promoting the concept of if Augur broke it automatically, Augur should fix it automatically. Right. Like I don't
Yeah,
like it as
I
much
agree
as
with I agree with that
with previous
philosophy.
issues we've had like we've just been like, hey, like for the duplicate whatever duplicate repos issue,
Yeah.
it's just like, hey, Callie, go run this giant script. And it's like I mean, I guess if we make the script nice and easy to use and put it in the release notes, like maybe we can rely on people to run it. But that's just another point of failure of like, oh crap, someone didn't read all the release notes they upgraded from an old version and didn't see it, and now they're on a new instance that has duplicate, or like something's broken because that didn't
Yeah.
happen. Whereas if
So
we have it sort of somehow automatic, then we can kind of be more sure that everyone's in a known consistent state.
I think that makes sense. So on the contributor fixing, I've been testing a set of scripts that would need to be then rolled into Augur. Um, Not quite done testing them yet. And so I think that based on what you're saying, I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I think we'd eventually want to roll them into Augur. I'd want to make sure that they're like obviously robust and good quality.
Yeah.
I think Callie's also been sharing some notes with me. Like just obviously we've got our own internal task tracking of what do we do about our instance. So I think once Callie is kind of back from whatever she's working on, she'll probably like have some idea. Like they're I think we're kind of taking advantage of like the mental space of being out on break and then being able to sort of ruminate on things in the background. So hopefully there's maybe some interesting ideas that come from that we can merge with your scripts and just kind of come to a
Okay.
solution that's like
You're sorry.
reliable for
So you're
everyone.
on break? What?
So Callie and I were both on PTO last week, and I think Callie's taken a few
Oh,
extra days.
oh, okay. I didn't realize that
Yeah,
because you were
yeah,
on the call last. You were on the maintainer call last week.
I sometimes I'll try and pop in because the maintainers call it's just regular scheduled call. Like that's I
All
usually
right.
try and pop into those regardless, but
If you take
um,
PTO, you should take PTO as there's a life lesson from a person who hasn't always done that. You do burn out if you don't take your PTO.
yeah, no. Generally, I was generally doing it all, but
I'm not, yeah, I'm not, my intention is only to provide, uh,
yeah.
the purpose of my life may be to serve as a warning to others. And I have, done work on PTO. In fact, I wrote a good deal of Augur, the Augur schema in, Belize in, 2018. Hmm. So is this bandit thing? This is probably in response to my observation that bandit was just littering the security tab.
That and also I noticed that I think there was a PR that got filed. I forget which one. It's probably linked in the underlying issue, but there it was also uh do kind of spamming some of the PR reviews with unit test things.
That's what I
Um,
thought. I saw that too.
I think I just grabbed that line of PyProject Toml I think from the Bandit docs, so it should work. Given that we also have our directory is also called tests, but um, yeah, that's probably going to help cut through it. I did sort of add Bandit as sort of a redundant because I know GitHub already does they've got their own code scanning thing, but
Yeah,
I wasn't sure it was necessarily catching because I know there's probably a lot of just like I've made PRs just in the last maybe not last few months, but like some relatively recently since Docker's started working in Augur to like remove the logging of like sensitive information in the log, like remove like censoring API keys and stuff like just easy stuff like that. So I just was thinking like, hey, maybe this is another layer to catch more of that kind of thing, just so that people don't look at Augur and like, oh my God, is this a security nightmare? Um,
yeah. I mean,
like if you're making something that easy so broken, like what else is broken, right? But I threw that in the milestone nine for like that's oh that this is a different yeah this is we're just
yeah, I
yeah so
already
we just go
merged
through open
the
PRs
bandit
at
one
this
I
point.
merged. That was so straightforward. I
Yeah.
saw no reason not to. Um,
This is effectively sort of a logging change anyway. So this isn't
Inject
anything
Augur
super
and
major.
version. When you say version, that made me think version of Augur.
Yeah,
But
version
when
of
I,
Augur. The PR has actually changed from that now because I was trying to import the version number of Augur from that metadata file. but
Yeah.
it was causing issues because I think that's not technically part of the Augur like project tree, like Augur module, so it couldn't import it. And so I think I just defaulted to like I think there's one place where we already import the version number, so I was able to reuse that. All the other places I just have Augur and then like a little piece of text of like, oh, this is coming from the CLI, this is coming from the API, this is coming from whatever. Um, I'm gonna double check to see if I
So
actually
what is setting the Augur version? Um, what's it? I just
No, the version is this. So this is just setting a string that basically identifies which application the database connections are coming from. Because I was looking in dbeaver just to see the list of connections, and like I saw some that were obviously from the user account I created for Grafana access.
yeah.
And then there was a couple, but basically everything had no name except for the connections that dbeaver itself was making. And I guess they've set it up to set their I like set like, hey, this is dbeaver or whatever. Um, so that you know like this connection is like which application, like where this connection is coming from, basically. Um, so I was just like, this is sort of just a like nice to have quality of life. Like
No, I mean
almost no one's probably gonna even notice this, but it might help
I've
with some
certainly
deep dugging of connections.
yeah, like because I have my 8 knot server on a different IP than Augur, I can now tell the difference in the connections, but before that I really couldn't. So I think this would be pretty helpful. I don't know, probably wait for someone else to look at it just
Yeah,
because it's
this is I think this was I like I mentioned this if you look at the milestone of this PR, it's I put it in 0.94. Like I was like, okay, not this next release, but the one after. Just
it's
like
0.93 the
this
next
isn't that
release.
important. It's just it like I think I'll usually maintain two milestones open at any given time is the next release and the release after. So I can kind of like, okay, this is more immediate priority than and then this is like we get there when we get there kind of thing.
Yeah.
So um I
And
don't
I'm guessing
remember.
these builds are just the timeout crap. Or if I
Both of them failing is interesting. I would probably, that might be worth looking into.
let me rerun them before you do that. Just because like depending on I've seen it fail when GitHub gets busy, right?
Oh, GitHub, yeah, no, GitHub has, I think GitHub's like status page has been all the rainbow colors in the last,
Yeah.
I think they've been getting hit pretty hard with the AI scrapers. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
I can't
I know
imagine,
like
oh,
during our maintainer call last week, my GitHub was extremely slow.
yeah, I think it was glitching out pretty hard for me as well. Um, I bet our that observation you made on our insights tab about how we've just been getting like hundreds of clones a day
Oh,
of
you think
Augur.
that's probably AI scrapers? That would
I
make sense.
well, I don't. But the thing that is making me wonder more is like if it wasn't AI scrapers and it's people actually using Augur, then
Wouldn't we hear from them?
people more people using Augur means potentially exponentially more calls made to GitHub's API, which they might. I don't know if they'll be able like that, which is probably going to look a little bit like a scraper. And so it's like, I feel like we're almost contributing to GitHub's downtime problems. Not in a
Yeah.
like bad way, just in a like, we have an application that hammers their API pretty hard.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't understand who are all these people using Augur or who are all these people cloning
I
Augur
think
and
it's
why?
bots. I love the
I
visual of
think you're
that
probably right.
clones in the last 14 days too. It's like it looks like it just goes through the roof. I love that. Hang on, I'm gonna take a screenshot of that.
That was yesterday. Like that's just because yesterday it was 470, but the day before that was a small number.
That's just
Like
hilarious. I just love the meme of that image.
yeah,
Like
yeah. So that like yeah, I don't know, unique visitors seems pretty normal. Total views seems like these seem like normal numbers. It's the clone numbers that seem whack.
it's I bet you it's AI scrapers.
Yeah, and I looked. I've looked around the GitHub API and there's really no way to get any information about who's cloning it.
You really can't like I don't you wouldn't be able to know, I don't think.
Yeah.
Um,
I've
the
thought
best
about,
GitHub could probably give you is an IP address, but then they're not going to be that's like
yeah,
technically PII and they're not going to share that. Um,
yeah, I've thought about putting in an optional telemetry um,
eh,
snippet, but just because I'm curious.
it might be. I wonder if it's worth like, because I wonder if we could do that kind of diagnostic script idea of like, hey, like do a little self check on your Augur instance, and then that can be kind of like we can have it generate a little like text file format that's like, hey, here's a report, like here's a little debugging report that you can submit if you have an issue, and then just encourage people to contact us with it. Or maybe I know places like
Yeah,
Pi-hole, like applications like Pi-hole will have an option in their little debug menu, like
that
their little like self-test menu, like, hey, upload this report and make like it'll upload it to like a pastebin site or something, or their own version of that, and then give you a link that you can share in your issue or something. So maybe we can do that. I don't know.
yeah,
I
that
want to
would
be careful not to like turn too many people away with telemetry, but
yeah, no, exactly. It would have to be optional. I actually like your idea better because we're offering to help. And honestly, if you're running Augur, you're going to want to check it and you're probably going to have something to submit if you've been running it for any period of time. And if nobody sends us anything and we've still got all these cloners, then I don't know, there's some kind of odd bot activity happening.
I also wonder too if this clones graph is it counting fresh clones or is it counting pulls of new commits? Because if we've got like this almost looks like it could just be like a bunch of people who just have Augur cloned already and are just periodically pulling for updates. Like if and so like I because I wonder so when were the dates that we last merged stuff to main? Because I know we
I
did
think it's
just
been
some just
almost
now.
2 months since we since we merged. So, yeah, we actually been merging stuff to main with pretty good regularity, right?
Yeah, so well,
Or-
I'm curious if some of those dates line up with some of those big spikes on that graph. Because the last one I see is March 12th. What was the graph again?
Uh, we only get 2 weeks, but yeah.
Yeah, we can't. I don't know if we can go back too far, but I'm like,
We can only go back 2 weeks unless we're pulling the data
okay,
regularly.
March 12th. So that doesn't really line up with that spike. But what was the commits
Well,
before
like,
that?
okay, the 12th to the 16th, that's 4 days. And today's a Tuesday.
So March 10th was a day we merged. There was some stuff on main, and that does line up with that big spike. With that sort of middle spike. Actually,
Yeah.
we merged a couple things. We merged quite a few things on March 10th.
Yeah, that would be the maintainers meeting. So
And then
that
March
makes
4th was the
sense.
one before that, which lines up with the previous spike. So I suspect I wonder if that could just be I mean, I imagine some amount of it is AI scrapers. Some of it is probably also just people like who have Augur cloned or like updating their clones, which
Yeah.
I guess is a good sign that people are keeping their instances up to date.
Yeah. I mean, anybody restarting Docker is going to pull this.
Uh, Restart it. I mean, yeah, if you update your Docker install, you'll do that, but that's not necessarily an automatic thing.
Okay.
Um, anyway, is so I also wanted to. I know there was kind of some efforts to include more 8 knot in these meetings as well. So I think I know
Yeah.
Kaio's out today, like he mentioned on Slack, but I did have some kind of updates that I think might be relevant to sort of bring
Yeah.
to the
Do you
Augur
want to share
table.
do you want to share a
It's just in
screen
the
or?
agenda if you wanted to pull that up.
Okay.
But it's
There you go.
basically just so we recently what we're working on currently is re-enabling the heat. There's some heat map diagrams, so kind of like which files have been touched at what times, sort of in a grid view to help you kind of see is a particular group of files or a particular subset of the repo like missing a maintainer and not being touched in a long time. I.e., I imagine you'd see something like Jumpstart in our repository to that because that folder hasn't been touched in 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just kind of another health metric. I think we disabled it because the queries were taking a really long time to run. And we recently, I think since we disabled it, there's been other improvements to Augur, like being able to ignore repos. And so we're slowly bringing back, we're trying to bring that back into 8.0 and re-enable the queries, move them into materialized views, things like that. So the first point with this is that there's now that we have some additional materialized views to bring into Augur upstream. Um,
Yeah,
I'm not
that would be good,
sure. I don't know
especially
what
if they're in, especially if eight knots expecting them.
yeah. So the problem with that is though, I don't think our current Alembic like database migration config is able to do materialized views. I think a lot of our materialized views have just existed forever, and that like they're in some of the old SQL scripts that are like the legacy
I think
migrations.
I think
And
Kelly and
so,
I created most of the materialized views like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
yeah. So, do you think that was potentially before we added Alembic?
We were using, so it was kind of the state that you saw when you started working on Augur, where we had that giant script that created everything up to a point, and then everything after that was Alembic. But I
Okay.
guess no, it was, yeah. So you know how we
See,
could
it
tell,
sounds
like,
like
yes, I think it was possibly before Alembic.
yeah, because
Um,
it sounds like a lot of like some of the stuff that Callie was referencing in that issue for bringing these data migration, these materialized views in was looking at some of those older SQL files, and I'm like, we shouldn't edit those because A, they're for older migrations and only apply to people upgrading from that old versions of Augur. And also, like, that's not going to apply to people upgrading their instance from this last version to this version. So I think we need to figure out a better way, figure out a way to get Alembic to see materialized views and be able to define those in I don't know how we would do that, like define them in maybe a Python model in our in SQL Alchemy or something. Just because I think we need to have those versioned and controlled the same way we do our regular schema. Um,
yeah, where are those scripts?
they are in application DB. It's alongside. I think some of them are alongside all the other. Like if you go to schema, no, not sorry,
Yeah,
I lied. I said DB. If
yeah,
you go to
all right, sorry,
schema.
been a
I
while.
think Alembic. There's a like some of the legacy migrations. There's some files in there. I think there's several SQL files everywhere, and I don't remember. Actually, those are all
Materialized
Python.
view update. So yeah, explore materialized view update. This is 3 years ago.
What's in that?
Um,
Is that? Oh, is no? That's an Alembic file. What's in that? Number four. Can you open that one?
yeah,
Explore the one you were just looking at.
yeah,
I love the lexicographic ordering.
yeah. I mean,
Oh,
this
add
is
material. So what's that function do? Add materialized views 15. Oh,
drop.
that's just raw. Okay, so I guess we could do it the raw SQL way. That's I don't like that, but it would be nice if we could get Alembic to like generate migrations to and
I
apply to
mean,
materialized views too.
syntactically, views are queries, right? Materialized views are just physically persisted queries because that's a lot faster. Um,
Yeah.
like logically, for what a Limbic does, I would wonder if it could support all the things that we need in a materialized view. Like one of the things you may or may not know this that you want to make sure to have in any materialized view, you want to have a primary key because without a primary key, you can't refresh data concurrently. And if you can't refresh data concurrently, that locks that materialized view from any connection or use while it's being refreshed.
Yeah, I mean that's less of a problem for 8.0 because we just regenerate all the materialized views when we clone the DB, but
Okay.
that's a very not typical setup because we're operating in such a scale that we can't have Augur collection and 8.0 running off the same DB, or at least that was when we were behind on collection. So I think now it might be better now that we're relatively caught up, but
Yeah.
I'd like to make some more performance fixes before we try and remerge those two. But speaking of performance too, I think one of the other things that this materialized view conversation brought up was I was kind of poking around and I noticed I filed an issue a little while ago about just the sheer size of the repo labor table, and I
Yeah.
realized
It's
that a lot of the queries for this, a lot of the materialized views for this heat map join on that table. So I suspect that the bulk of that table is potentially what was causing this query to be so slow in the first place that we disabled it in 8.0 to begin with.
Yeah.
Um,
I that table is a huge percentage of the disk utilization because it's
yeah.
persisting the analysis from all time. That's been extremely useful in we're working my research group is working on understanding the evolution of complexity of software with the dawn of AI, and having that history has been of phenomenal use to us. Uh, However, it is a giant table, and the things that are useful could almost certainly be summarized down into a smaller table.
So what I'm not even saying like remove the like I think having that history is useful. I'm just thinking that there's a lot of duplication between what we're storing in this table and what's existing in other places. Like I think we already have like PR files. The commits table is already effectively commit files. We just need to rename that and fix that. But I think it might make sense to move towards maybe having a table that's like files that is referenced in other from all the other places that we can have files. And then, because then the repo labor is essentially just sort of analysis of those files, right? Like it's looking at how many lines of this code is comments versus code versus I forget exactly what it looks at, but it's
Yeah.
got those like the core of that table is like 5 columns that are just small integers. So I
So
think if we
we
can deduplicate storing like the file paths and the file names and things, and you put those in a different table and have that be a foreign key reference.
so we did try that initially, and the reason that we we sort of evolved away from it, and I'm not saying that this is an unsolvable problem. I'm saying that we decided not to try to solve it. The When you're analyzing the pull requests in the files, that's the files in that pull request at that point in time. When you're analyzing repo labor, those are the files in that repo at that point in time. Files are added and removed routinely. So there isn't actually in Augur anything that is the canonical, here are the files in this repo, except for the most recent uh, commit files. But we don't actually have like a file reference that is independent from some analysis of the file, whether it's pull request files, commit files, or the repo labor files. So there is no list of files historically. And I think we would need something like that to have a central files table, because those three entities are going to they'll have different inventories of files at any moment in time. There'll be one or two files that are new in one of them and one or two files that are missing in one of them. You see what I'm saying? Did I
Yeah,
explain
I
that
mean, I
any
think that
well?
would still be, um, you could still have that even with sort of centralizing the files table, because like the files table could essentially like if any of like whether it comes from a PR or a commit or whatever, like there's information that is the same across all of those sources where it's like what file is it? Like some of the basic there's things that are common to the concept of a file. I think
The,
like putting those in one table we might be able to do some deduplication, but that's a different issue. But I think
what
we'd
about
still
the
be able
point
to
in
look at
time
it from the
though?
different views because it'll all be foreign key. Like we could do, okay, pull requests, like we could have a table that links pull requests and the files that are in that pull request, and you could do a join through that.
What about so I'm just like thinking through the problems that we had when we tried to do this. What about when like I have a centralized list of files when there's a significant refactoring, sometimes nearly every file moves around. So now what do we do with the history of the file? Do we keep that in a table? Because if we're using a centralized files inventory, the pull request files and the repo labor files path, they both need the history. They need to see the files at the moment in time that those analyses ran.
Yeah, we don't need like I don't think we need to necessarily be trying to like we could still store like multiple records for like if you're looking at a particular like set of rows that are like for this repo and like what like you could like for example if you were to query this hypothetical future files table for a given repo, I think it would be reasonable for you to see like okay, here's like 1,000 entries for basically the same file path, all with different collection dates. Like, okay, this file was seen at all these different times. Maybe half of them are from a PR, half of them are from a commit, like several of them are like you could kind of I don't I mean and then you could get into some of the deduplication where like okay maybe it's one file and then but you could access it from either a foreign key from the like pull requests or you could do a foreign key from the repo labor for like multiple things looking at that one file but you'd still have several entries for that file path as it's like over time like every time it changes base or something like
Okay.
uh it sort of depends on how you lay out the tables, but I think you'd still have the history. I think it's entirely possible to still keep like, okay, this file got added here, and to be able to find ways of like where it was last seen and stuff. Um,
Okay. I mean,
it's definitely require a lot of thinking through and planning, but I think that's definitely a worthy direction to try and go. And like, 'cause I think a database should really be trying to map these concepts of like, okay, here is a file, here is a pull request, here is the relationship between the two. Like, okay, here's how a file relates to a commit, um, and
and
try
this
and kind of
makes me,
move towards normalizing things a little bit.
so I have, so one question I have for Callie, who's not here, I understand, but is I guess, analytical utility of that, which I think what I'm hearing is it would lower the learning curve, basically. Like a lot of these changes would reduce the learning curve for data scientists leveraging Augur, right?
Yeah, that sounds that I think that's a yeah, that would probably be a benefit. Like that's I think that's just a benefit to helping kind of normalize the tables a little bit and like maybe don't go too overboard, but like yeah, having just one place where you can look at files, um, and then you can get different views of that depending on whether you're sort of joining into that table from a pull request or a commit or a repo labor or
Yeah.
something.
So then
Um,
another question becomes is does the cost of doing all of this coordination when we're collecting data make sense? Or is this an example of a place where perhaps we need some kind of analytical version that we extract data from Augur into?
I think the costs during collection are probably relatively negligible. I know we
Okay.
could probably rely on, I mean, we can like SQL Alchemy does have pretty strong support for like doing relationships and things, and we could kind of rely on it a little bit more to like handle, okay, we're gonna just create this object and populate this like files thing with whatever, and then it just sort of figures out where that goes in the table. Um, I think I was thinking of something else too. We another one of the approaches I was also thinking of as far as like moving towards sort of trying to normalize our database is yeah, taking advantage of things like materialized views to sort of since 8 Knots already basically relying on the API the database schema anyway, largely through materialized views. I think we can kind of take advantage of that and use the materialized views as sort of like an outer castle wall of here is our sort of suggested like we'd rather you query these. Um, and that so then if we need to shuffle the other tables around, we can like if we make a change to the schema for like some of the like PR files or something, we can make that change both in the core schema and in the materialized view, such that the output of the materialized view doesn't change. And so downstream applications don't like really have to worry about it. Same with if we slightly tweak how we're processing the data in one of our REST endpoints, but the output JSON is still the same. Like I think we can kind of move towards that with materialized views, or I think even some of the
Yeah.
I think Michael in the data engineering channel was trying to start a discussion on some like semantic layers and more sort of data-y tools for what it sounds like is doing a very similar thing. Um, so I think maybe we could do that, and we could just sort of maybe define what our ideal perfect schema is, make materialized views for all those tables, and then figure out how to cram whatever jank tables we have now into that, and have that be sort of our defined public API. And then that'll build us some space so that we can internally take whatever time we need to migrate our core tables such that it's maybe a better, like the queries that convert to those materialized views aren't as horrible and crufty and like terrible.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes, I mean, okay, that seems like a logical
yeah, it's
path
it's
to
it's a large
pursue.
effort. I don't think it's necessarily in the cards for this year, but I think like
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff is like long. Like I think I've been definitely trying to kind of look at issues of like, okay, what's like, are there these big long-term goals that we can just sort of think about? Like every time we do data migration, can we just think about, okay, at least make sure that all the small changes we're making are at least taking steps either towards or not away from like these larger goals of normalizing the table. Like I think some of the smaller changes that I think we were talking about in previous weeks, as far as potentially like using like the contributor aliases as sort of just the canonical source of emails instead of having an email in the contributors table and also a list of aliases. Like just having that all like here is a table that just lists the many emails that one contributor can have, like it's just a simple many to one table structure. Um, anyway, I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Just I know
All right,
Schlock just joined. So
no,
is
no,
there anyone else
it's
got other
been,
things to add to the agenda?
yeah, hey, Schlock, we see you come in. We've just been looking at PRs and
Hey guys, yeah,
talking.
I've been seeing I get those GitHub emails. It's just that I've been really busy with sort of interviews and everything. I haven't had a chance to do much, but I have my final Red Hat interview in like 15 minutes. So I'm
Ooh,
hoping that I'll be done with everything by the end of this week and then actually get back to order because I really don't have anything else to do recent. I've defended my thesis. I've submitted a couple of papers, so sort of like a pre-bird now, just wrapping up all of this stuff and then get back to order. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Congrats on
Yeah.
the
awesome.
final round.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Let's see. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I really have much to add. I'm just trying to, you know, listen more and see, what are the biggest pain points and if there's something that I can contribute back.
Yeah, if you've got time, I think I don't really have much. Like, my focus this week is mostly going to be on working with Callie on figuring out how do we clean up our data from some of the collection bugs of the last few weeks. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you really wanted something to do, I think getting started maybe on figuring out how we can get Alembic to like how we can sort of bring in the materialized views into our database sort of versioning process with Alembic, I think would be helpful. I think I found a couple of links to sort of start the research process in whatever relevant issue is in these notes. Um, but I haven't
Okay.
really looked into it more than just a cursory click the first Stack Overflow link I found.
Got
Um,
it.
so if that's something that
Sounds fair.
you've got time for,
Yeah,
like towards
definitely.
the end of this week,
Definitely.
like it's not super high priority, but it's like 8 Knot is starting to kind of introduce its own materialized views, and that's
Got
not a
it.
very good user experience for someone who's just expecting Docker Compose up on two stacks and having it work.
Yep,
Um,
yep, yep, obviously. Yeah. All right, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not sure if Alembic supports materialized views
I
out of
think
the
there's like a plugin
box.
or like a third-party thing is what it
So
looked
what
Okay,
like.
okay.
what branch would I have? What branch of 8 knot are those materialized views required for, Adrian? Because
So
it
right
seems like that
now,
would be a. I'm worried that would be a breaking change for my 8 knot instance when I pull it the next time.
so we just released a new version just to pull in mostly performance, but like a particular sort of performance fix for the search bar. The re-enabling it's re-enabling the heat maps that's the thing that's going to sort of cause a lot of this. That has technically not been merged yet. I think it's pretty close. I'm probably going to be looking at it today and or this week.
Is it
Um,
in dev?
it's just a feature branch. It's just a PR feature
Okay.
branch. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, those feature branches do merge into dev. And so dev is equivalent to our main, and then release, and then main and 8 Knot is equivalent to our release. The naming is a little bit backwards, but it's conceptually the same process of
Yeah.
PRs go into a dev branch, go into a release branch.
Yeah, no, I think yours is a little bit easier for people to understand that they're working with a dev branch when they hit the repo, honestly. Like if I go back in time, I might rename our branches following your pattern. In fact, we can do that, but I'm not suggesting we do that right now. Just
Yeah.
it might make sense if the two projects were consistent as I think about that. So yeah, I mean, I think if it gets into dev, if there would be a way that you could at least, I don't know, I think we should put something into Augur to indicate that even if we don't have it automated, it would be helpful to know that you have to create that materialized view or those materialized views, whatever they were, and have a script for it.
Yeah, I know I've definitely I think for our most recent sort of release of 8 not I did sort of push for having like a tagged version number. And I think that was sort of moving towards the idea of putting in the 8 not README, like, okay, here are the versions of Augur that these versions of 8 not was sort of designed alongside. Um,
Right.
so that like if you're just trying to run an old version, you know, okay, I need to be using one of these versions of Augur with this version of 8 not. It as I don't really want to necessarily have to like be super strict about that. Like I'd like the compatibility to be pretty open, but I think
Yeah.
like especially if we've got things like this where like there's new materialized views and new things happening. Like that's why I think this process of being able to bring the materialized views in upstream because basically what's happened is our process for versioning DB has changed since we last realistically looked at bringing materialized views in. So
Right.
we need to figure out, okay, how does that new Alembic process handle materialized views? Like, I'd like to use Alembic if we at all can, but like, utter worst case is like we just have a folder of SQL files that is like the current materialized views, and every time you upgrade Augur, we just wipe them and regenerate them, which is going to be a royal pain for huge instances like ours, but for the majority of the smaller instances, it shouldn't be that impactful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I mean, I'm thinking of myself right now. I just don't want my 8 not instances to break the next time I update 8 not. And I
yeah,
think
that makes
most
Hey,
sense.
people are like that.
Adrian, Adrian, quick question. Is there an existing issue that's tracking this materialized views issue?
Yeah, so I think I put it, it should be
This
in,
one here, I think
yeah, so I think there's an issue on the
Ah,
Augur
okay.
side and there's
Got
an
it.
issue on the 8 knot side.
Got it.
Um,
Okay.
I think I made an 8 knot one that was like, hey, we should probably upstream these. And then I think Callie made this issue that was like,
Got it.
here's the upstream side of this conversation.
Yep.
Um,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'll go through, read through that conversation. Okay. I also see a Stack Overflow link as well. I'll read through that as well. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think
I'll
other than
even
that, my
just,
my focus in the sort of slightly more distant future is like, okay, starting to landing more like sort of more of those kinds of PRs, Sean, that we were merging last week, as far as just like, okay, let's start moving some of the functions that we have to generate URLs into our actual GitHub API class and sort of starting
yeah,
to reorganize some code so that things we can sort of be like, okay, now let's take this GitHub class and swap it out for a 4geo one or something, and hopefully things work.
yeah. There's one other PR that Adrian did that I just wanted another set of eyes on before we, it's this one. I'm looking for my
Okay.
chat window in Zoom as we run out of time in this meeting.
I think this was actually no, this wasn't in the notes, but yeah, this is
3771.
relatively
Okay.
recent. It's just a small quality of life. It just has Augur basically assign its own name to connections that it's making into the database, so that when you're in the like sessions view, whatever it's called in DB or your other tool of choice. Like if you're looking at just the list of all the sessions that are connected to the database, you can see which ones are from Augur and which ones might be unnamed from other places.
Got it.
Um,
Yeah, if you have a chance to review that schlock, but we're out of time
Yep.
now, so
Yep.
we'll let everybody go. And thank you
All
both
right.
for
Sounds
all
good.
of the work that you do and making Augur so much better than it was 6 months ago.
yeah, thank you guys for helping review all the PRs. Like I know we're still got a huge backlog, but I think we're working through it. Hopefully do 5 or so small ones for each release and hopefully get through it
Yeah,
eventually.
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah. We could go. We should get at some point. We should decide how to get rid of the ones that are stale and that the people aren't coming back to.
I've been starting to close some of those and just kind of
Okay.
like I'm trying to, I think I tend to leave open the ones that like have maybe a kernel of being potentially like it might be worthy of someone like, hey, there's a kernel of good stuff here. Maybe someone can take it over and clean it up.
Yeah,
But I might need to start being a little bit less friendly on that just because there's so many of them and it's just like I think I need to start learning the power of saying no by default.
yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you both. I
Yep.
will
All right.
see you
Have a good day,
around. See you
everyone.
online. Bye.